So Google have just released their first AI film, and you probably haven't even heard of it, and I want to talk about why. So for those of you out of the loop who don't follow this incredible frontier of what's happening with AI as closely as others, Google, that plucky startup, have the current benchmark in the world of AI, content creation. When Google released VO3, there was a trailer underneath for a film in collaboration with Darren Aronofsky. Google DeepMind got in touch with this filmmaker to produce a set of 3 AI films using VO3. I was very excited. They didn't release the film at the same time as they released the program. You would go on the website, and just beneath it, there was a trailer.
From every star that died so that you could begin.
Now, I pinpointed this date, and I noticed quickly the trailer disappeared from the website. And it was replaced with what a few independent filmmakers had done with this new tool. And I noticed that they were, in general, trash. But not trash in the way that you might expect of not quite looking real. They were trash because there was absolutely no element of storytelling within them. Often in art, we find this contrast between what is timeless and what is novel. And it's very easy to be fashionable, the flash of the now. But really it takes time for great art to embed itself culturally and to be considered truly great. And I want you just to do a quick little thought exercise in thinking back over the last 2 years on when you were shown some generative tool that has completely blown your mind, and realize just how quickly it became ordinary. I'm going to be watching this video back maybe in 6 months and think just how mundane VO3 looks compared to what exists in the world now. The ideas behind what I want to say, and the whole concept of this channel, ArtLoud, is to look at the underlying trends of what's happening and try to talk more about the philosophy of art and AI and what might be happening and generate discussions around it.
33.
No movement.
There's no heartbeat.
Ancestra is a film about a young woman who is having a traumatic birth because the baby has a hole in its heart. So before I go into talking about Ancestra too deeply, I want to quickly just state that it's not a film by Darren Aronofsky. It is actually a film by a woman called Elijah McNeish. And it doesn't feature much AI at all. Before I talk about what actually happens in the film Ancestra, I want to talk about a concept called Maya. Now, I've mentioned this before, and it's from the old designer Raymond Lowery, and he talks about things being most advanced yet acceptable. Now, I prefer most advanced yet accessible. The idea that we cannot fully accept something new without reference to something we already know. So 2 years ago, I released a video called Artists Don't Understand AI Yet. And that was very much to do with the world of still image. Now that it's moved on and talking about video, we've suddenly got all the filmmakers involved in this conversation. So I think it's worth readdressing. And it's this idea that if you were to show a film now to someone in the 1910s, they wouldn't really understand it. You're used to watching people on a stage. The idea of watching a screen that suddenly flips between 2 completely different perspectives takes some learning. It's impossible nearly to fathom that now, but it is something that comes incrementally as we understand more about visual grammar in filmmaking. If you look at things like the Kindle, a revolutionary new way of reading as opposed to a book, you would actually press a button, an animation of a page turning would appear on the Kindle screen. You would even get a little shh of the page. It seems stupid now, which is why often the most groundbreaking artists in history have always been misunderstood in their time because they were too advanced. In time, culture will see what they're trying to do, shave off the edges, appropriate it, and make it accessible. AI is able to do things that we currently can't understand at all, but we're only able to access it through what we already know. And these shitty little films that are appearing on Google VO's homepage, which I'm sorry to the filmmakers involved, but they aren't exactly pushing it in new ways. They're simply trying to replicate what was done before. But really, AI is going to open doors into ways of generating images to do stories that are absolutely going to blow our minds. While on one hand, you can say, this is fantastic. A teenager in their bedroom, she might now be able to create a Hollywood-style film. That's wonderful. Or you might say this is horrific. What about all the people in the industry that are going to lose their jobs? But this has kind of happened before. When the DSLR camera first came out, this conversation was had that now anyone can make their own Hollywood film at home. And what really happened is, without the control of distribution, no one really cared. So you had this horrible grabbing attention thing, which is this game we play here. Really, YouTube was the only platform that these filmmakers had. And I think it's going to be a similar thing here. It's going to be a new, totally different thing. But we can't yet fathom what that is, but it's on artists to stretch this and move it to where we want to go. So did Darren Aronofsky do this with Ancestra? No.
We're in the 50s.
We need to go.
Is your husband here?
This was supposed to be a checkup.
Crash C-section!
And when I watch the film, trying not to look at any of the making of before it, the first 10 seconds, I am completely blown away. I cannot fathom what I'm watching on screen. It's unbelievable. And then I realize I've been watching for 10 seconds, then 15 seconds. And as a user of these new AI tools, I realize VO3 can only generate images up to about 8 seconds. Confirmed by the end credits. Popping up lots of actors and VFX artists. So this is not anywhere near an AI film. It is in fact largely live footage filmed in a traditional way, and only a small glimmer of AI. And then I was fascinated at the decision-making process behind all of this, because this is a huge project. But then when you look at it and you start to realize, I think Darren Aronofsky is kind of not into this whole process.
What is the maximum duration of a clip that it can output?
8 seconds.
Out of curiosity, was that 8 seconds sort of, how does that land with your...
Not good.
Why
No,
not?
I mean, we have to do better.
There are 2 more to come, and I'm fascinated to see what he does with them. And then this director, Elijah, when you hear her talk, she's only interested in the stories she's telling, as that's what's happened to her. She was born, she had a hole in her heart, and she wanted to get her story out into the world. She never once, really, in the behind the scenes or in any of the talk panel shows I've watched since, talk about AI or the tool.
A big piece of my approach was really with actors. There's just nothing like a human performance and the kind of emotion that an actor can evoke.
And I can't really see the fit here. It doesn't seem like she gave a shit about telling a story through AI.
So we created a 3D model of the human body. I mapped out the exact camera movements and motion that I wanted. And our team added texture, color, and lighting to help pre-visualize how the scene would look. We then took that render and put it into VO.
And so you end up with this quite unimpactful short film, which confuses lots of people because number one, they don't know what they're watching. They think it's all AI. It terrifies people because they think it's gone much further than it actually has and it's about to take loads of actors' jobs, which when you look into it, it is not. And on the other side, it's just dismissed as being fake by people like me.
This looks too gray, too AI.
After watching it, I was deeply disappointed and I thought Google should have done a lot better because they made it out like they were going to produce an AI film. And actually, I would say 80% of the film is not generated by AI. But there is one fascinating part that is. And I think that's where I want to pull a lot of the artists who are currently very skeptical about AI, about stealing, and fear their jobs, especially young artists who maybe have just graduated from filmmaking or they've just graduated from art school. While they are being very defensive about it, perhaps rightly, I want to pull you along and say, buckle up, it's okay, but get involved. Because if you pop the bonnet, AI is not going to change everything radically straight away, but it is going to change everything radically in time. There's one section in the film where they're talking about generating a baby. Now this is interesting because consensus and morality around having a baby on set that can't consent is interesting. And I would say that the AI generated shots of the baby are pretty good. They segmented the screen up and told it in sections where it could generate and where it couldn't. So you could mix live footage with AI generated footage. They took photos of Elijah as a baby. It wasn't really her, it was a generic baby. But then they were able to use VO3 to implant that child, and it looks real. It looks good and passable. And that is one section where AI was used as a tool in a wider story to fantastic effect. The rest of it, the hole in the heart element, this biological, strange, beautiful thing, was pretty, but it didn't help with storytelling at all. And I felt like she fell into the trap that lots of the people who first picked up DSLRs in this democratization of filmmaking also fell into, making incredibly beautiful things, lit perfectly, graded to perfection, that are absolutely vapid. They have no emotion, no story, no soul, no narrative that takes you anywhere or makes you feel anything. It's just pretty. Now, those people of my peers then end up with very pretty show reels. And that does kind of work when you want to go into the commercial sector and make adverts or even become a DOP. The storytelling element is for the scriptwriter, the director, the actors, or everyone else. I understand that. But now that we have a tool that can do everything, I think it's even more important than ever to focus on what we're saying and why we're saying it. VO3 is going to date and be old news so quickly. And whether it's VO7 or some other tool, I think it's unfair of me to expect those to be also the backers of the greatest content that's generated. Google are the tool maker. They have to play it safe. Kodak, when they released all this film stock, are not going to align themselves with an incredibly quirky artist breaking new ground, because often breaking new ground means breaking boundaries that offend. It's not normally the engineers and the architects of these tools who have the creative ideas to push and pull them, but they do work in unison. And it's one of the great things I want to explore on this channel, a closeness between the engineer and the artist.
At Google Labs, I don't know if they're artists or technologists. It's very hard to, I don't think they know how to define themselves. I think it's a bit of everything.
I think it's unfair of me to expect those to be also the backers of the greatest content that's generated. But in the concept of Maya, we need to do two things. We need to first get people to understand and accept this new tool. And one of the ways to do that is to see it just as that, as a tool, and how it can help in certain elements of your production. And to say that it isn't already, it's dominating all forms of content creation. It might not be generating the images, but it will be involved in previs, scripting will be going through ChatGPT. It's already fully immersed. I can see what they're doing in how they're trying to mix it in. I just don't think they did it very well. Generating images separately and bringing them together and morphing between them might be where VO3 really hits the best.
What these models can do is create something instantaneously. Version after version after version after version, but it means nonsense without authorship.
I think Ancestra was an interesting project, but I think it was a bad project. I don't think they did very well. And I'm hoping that this Primordial Soup organization, that's the collaboration between DeepMind and Aronofsky, does better in the next two videos. And I don't necessarily want to blame Elijah for this. It's not my kind of film. Overly sentimental, slightly twee to my English sentiment. But fundamentally, to give her her dues, she just wanted to tell her story, which is, I think, how we should all approach this. We shouldn't necessarily look at the gimmick of what AI can do and how it can do it. And we should instead think more how we can use these tools to tell our stories. And she did. Again, she got a big team in. And I just don't think it's appropriate for selling VO3. Google definitely faked it because it's not an AI film. But this channel is about art and a revolution in art. It's always been the artists that follow the technologists, and they used to live a lot closer, and I want them to come back out and live close again. When the photography camera mimicked portrait painting near 150 years ago now, because most people who are portrait painters said it had no soul and it wasn't real, but they lost. Now to have your painted portrait is something only reserved for the elite and the wealthy. Photography, family photos are the norm. And I don't want to lose another generation of artists who could potentially see the technology and ride with it or against it to produce new things. For me, in the world of painting, it only really got interesting when it started challenging the camera through Impressionism and all of the painting that happened in the 20th century. For me, it's better than anything that came before. Why? And working out what it was really trying to do, what it was really trying to say that the camera cannot say. And if people who enjoy traditional media take the same mindset of what we can do now, whether it's with or against, hopefully we can tell real stories that matter, in trying to see what you can say with these AI tools that has not been said before, not for the sake of novelty, but how to tell your story in a better way. I want it to be for you, for me, and how we can generate things that better express what we want to put out into the world. And that's what this channel and ArtLoud are going to try and do and advocate for. And I hope you can follow us for the rest of the discussions. And until then, see you around.